I remember standing in the doorway of our small house that night watching three little faces sleeping peacefully in their beds, completely unaware that their mother had just walked out on us. Connor was 8, Sophie was 6, and Emma was only 4 years old. My wife had packed her bags and left with another man choosing a life of luxury over her own children. I stood there in the darkness, feeling my world crumble, but I knew I had to be strong. I had to be everything they needed. 21 years later, she came back. And what happened next changed everything. Before I tell you what my kids said when she showed up begging at our door after 2 decades, let me know where you are watching from. Hit that like button and subscribe, because this story about choices and consequences will show you that some bridges are meant to stay burned. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. Laura and I got married when we were both 22 years old. We thought we had forever ahead of us. Back then, life felt simple and full of promise. I had just landed a job as a mechanical engineer at an automotive manufacturing company in Detroit, and Laura was teaching preschool at a local elementary school. We were young in love and ready to build our family. Connor came first, then Sophie 2 years later, and finally Emma. Our house was always filled with noise. Toys scattered across the living room floor, crayons on the kitchen table, laughter echoing through every corner. Laura used to organize these elaborate family activities, weekend camping trips to the lakes up north, birthday parties with homemade decorations. She would bake cookies with the kids every Sunday afternoon, and the smell of chocolate chip and vanilla would fill the entire house. I would come home from work exhausted, grease still under my fingernails from working on prototypes all day. But the moment I walked through that door and heard my kids yelling, "Daddy is home," everything else faded away. We would have dinner together every single night. No exceptions. Laura insisted on it. She said family time was sacred. We would sit around our old wooden table and the kids would tell us about their day at school, their friends, their dreams. I remember one particular evening. Connor had just won a science fair at school with a project about magnets. He was so excited, talking a mile a minute, showing us his blue ribbon. Laura kissed his forehead and told him how proud she was. Sophie was learning ballet and would practice her positions in the hallway, sometimes crashing into walls, but always getting back up with a giggle. Emma, our youngest, was obsessed with storybooks. Every night before bed, I would read to her. She would curl up next to me, her tiny hand holding onto my shirt, listening to tales of princesses and dragons. Life was not perfect, but it was ours. We had struggles like any family. Money was tight sometimes. I was working long hours to provide, and Laura was balancing teaching with taking care of 3 energetic kids. But we were happy. At least I thought we were. Then things started to change. It was subtle at first. Laura began staying late at school more often. She said she had extra meetings, planning sessions, parent conferences. I did not question it. I trusted her completely. But then her phone started ringing at odd hours. She would glance at the screen, her expression would shift, and she would excuse herself to take the call in another room. Sometimes I would hear her voice through the walls, soft and secretive, nothing like the way she talked to me. She became distant. At dinner, she was physically there, but mentally somewhere else. She stopped asking about my day. She stopped organizing those family activities she loved so much. The kids noticed too. Sophie asked me one day, "Why does Mommy seem sad all the time?" I did not have an answer. I tried talking to Laura about it. I asked if something was wrong, if she was unhappy, if there was anything I could do. She would brush me off with excuses. Work stress. She was tired. She needed space. I gave her space, thinking she just needed time. One night, I woke up around 2 in the morning. Laura was not in bed. I found her sitting on the couch in the living room, the glow of her phone illuminating her face in the darkness. She was smiling. Not the polite smile she gave me anymore, but a genuine, radiant smile. She was texting someone, her fingers moving quickly across the screen. I stood in the hallway watching her, and my stomach twisted. I knew then. Something was wrong. I went back to bed and pretended to sleep, but my mind was racing with terrible possibilities. The truth came crashing down on a Friday afternoon in late September. My company had given us the day off due to a machinery malfunction, so I came home early. I was planning to surprise Laura, maybe take her out to lunch while the kids were at school. I walked into our bedroom and froze. There was a large suitcase on the bed, half packed with her clothes. I just stood there staring at it, not understanding what I was seeing. Laura came out of the bathroom, and when she saw me, her face went pale. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then I asked the question I did not want to ask. "What are you doing?" My voice came out calmer than I felt. She did not answer right away. She just looked at me with this mixture of guilt and defiance. Then she said it. "I am leaving Ike." Those 3 words shattered everything. I asked her why. I asked her if it was something I did, something I could fix. That is when she told me about David. She had met him at a charity event the school organized 6 months ago. He was a businessman, wealthy, charming. She said he made her feel alive again. He made her feel like more than just a mother and a wife. She said she needed more from life. She was only 30 years old and she felt trapped. I asked her about the kids. I will never forget her response. She said, "I love them, but I cannot do this anymore. I need to live my own life. I am still young Ike. I cannot be tied down forever." Tied down. That is what she called our children. I felt anger rising in my chest, but I kept my voice steady. I asked if she had thought about what this would do to them. She looked away. She said they would understand someday. They would get over it. Kids are resilient. We argued for hours. I begged her to reconsider, to think about Connor, Sophie, and Emma, but she had already made up her mind. She told me she was leaving the house to me and the kids. She did not want custody. She did not want to fight. She just wanted out. David was waiting for her. They were moving to California together, starting fresh. That night, after the kids had gone to bed, Laura finished packing. I watched her from the doorway as she moved around the room, gathering her things like she was erasing herself from our lives. She walked into the kids' room one last time. I followed her. She stood there looking at their sleeping faces. Connor was clutching his stuffed bear. Sophie had kicked off her blanket like she always did. Emma was sucking her thumb. Laura reached out like she was going to touch them, but then she pulled her hand back. She turned and walked past me without a word. I heard the front door open and close, and just like that, she was gone. The next morning was the hardest morning of my life. I had to wake up the kids and somehow explain that their mother was not coming back. Connor was the first one to ask. He came into the kitchen looking for Laura. "Where is Mom?" I knelt down to his level and said, "Mom had to go away for a while." His face scrunched up in confusion. "When is she coming back?" I did not know what to tell him. I could not lie and say she would be back soon, but I also could not break his heart with the truth. So I said, "I do not know, buddy." Sophie started crying. She did not fully understand what was happening, but she could sense something was terribly wrong. Emma kept asking for Mommy over and over. I held all 3 of them, trying to comfort them while fighting back my own tears. That day I called in sick to work. I could not leave them. We sat together on the couch, and I did my best to answer their questions without destroying them completely. The first few weeks were chaos. I had no idea what I was doing. I was a mechanical engineer, not a stay-at-home parent. I had to learn everything from scratch, cooking meals that were not burnt or inedible, getting the kids ready for school on time, making sure they had clean clothes and finished their homework. I failed more often than I succeeded at first. I remember the first time I tried to braid Sophie's hair for school. She wanted it in 2 braids like her friend Madison. I watched a tutorial video 3 times, but my fingers were clumsy and used to working with tools, not delicate strands of hair. The result looked like a bird's nest. Sophie looked in the mirror and started crying. I felt like the worst father in the world. But then she hugged me and said, "It is okay, Daddy. You tried." That small act of grace from my 6-year-old daughter kept me going. Cooking was another disaster. The first dinner I made on my own was supposed to be roasted chicken with vegetables. I burned the chicken so badly that smoke filled the kitchen and set off the fire alarm. The kids thought it was hilarious. We ended up ordering pizza that night, and we sat on the floor eating straight from the box. Emma said it was the best dinner ever. I laughed for the first time since Laura left. I had to restructure my entire life. I talked to my boss and asked if I could work from home part-time. Luckily, he was understanding. He had kids of his own and could not imagine what I was going through. The company allowed me to adjust my schedule so I could drop the kids off at school in the morning and pick them up in the afternoon. I worked late into the night after they went to bed, catching up on projects and deadlines. Money became tight. I was now covering all the expenses on a single income: mortgage, utilities, groceries, school supplies, clothes that the kids kept outgrowing. I had to cut back on everything. No more eating out except for rare treats. No more new toys unless it was a birthday or Christmas. I learned to shop sales clip coupons and make every dollar stretch as far as possible. But the hardest part was not the logistics. It was the emotional weight. Connor started acting out at school. His teacher called me in for a meeting. She said he was getting into fights, not paying attention in class, and his grades were slipping. I sat down with him that evening and asked what was going on. He finally broke down. He said kids at school were asking where his mom was, and he did not know what to tell them. He felt embarrassed and angry. I held him while he cried and told him it was okay to feel that way. I told him that what his mother did was not his fault. None of this was any of their faults. Sophie became quieter. She used to be this bubbly, talkative little girl, but after Laura left, she withdrew into herself. She stopped dancing around the house. She stopped talking about her day. I signed her up for ballet classes, hoping it would help. At first, she did not want to go, but I encouraged her. Slowly, dance became her outlet. I went to every single recital, sitting in the audience, clapping louder than anyone else. Emma, being the youngest, handled it differently. She became incredibly clingy. She did not want me out of her sight. She had nightmares about me leaving too. I started a bedtime routine where I would read her 2 stories instead of 1, and I would stay in her room until she fell asleep. Some nights she would wake up crying, and I would carry her to my bed and let her sleep next to me. As the months turned into years, we found our rhythm. I became better at cooking. I learned to make spaghetti that the kids actually enjoyed, and my pancakes on Sunday mornings became a tradition. I figured out how to braid hair properly. I learned when to be firm and when to be gentle. I showed up to every parent-teacher conference, every school play, every sporting event. I was there when Connor joined the soccer team. I became an assistant coach so I could spend more time with him. I was there when Sophie performed in her first ballet recital, bringing her flowers afterward. I was there when Emma learned to ride her bike, running beside her until she found her balance. The kids stopped asking about Laura after the first year. They understood in their own way that she had chosen to leave. We did not talk about her much. It was an unspoken agreement. We focused on us, on building a life that did not revolve around the absence of someone who did not want to be there. Connor grew into a focused and determined young man. He threw himself into his studies. He wanted to be an engineer like me. I helped him with his science projects, and we spent countless hours in the garage working on experiments together. When he got accepted into a prestigious engineering program with a full scholarship, I cried. I was so proud of him. At his high school graduation, he gave a speech and thanked me. He said, "My dad taught me that strength is not about never falling down. It is about getting back up every single time." I will never forget those words. Sophie found her passion in fashion design. She filled notebooks with sketches of dresses and outfits. I did not know the first thing about fashion, but I supported her. I bought her art supplies, took her to fabric stores, and helped her apply to art schools. When she got accepted into the Fashion Institute, she was over the moon. I watched her confidence grow as she pursued her dreams. She became this vibrant, creative force, and I knew she was going to do amazing things. Emma decided she wanted to be a teacher. She said she wanted to help kids the way I had helped her. That statement filled me with more pride than I can put into words. She studied education in college and graduated at the top of her class. The day she got her teaching certificate, she handed it to me and said, "This is because of you, Dad." I told her it was all her. She was the one who worked hard, who never gave up. But she insisted. She said I taught her what dedication looked like. Through all of this, I climbed the ranks at my company. I became a senior engineer, then a project manager, and eventually the director of engineering. My career flourished because I had something to fight for. I was not just working for myself, I was working for Connor, Sophie, and Emma. Every promotion meant I could provide better for them. Every raise meant more opportunities. We became incredibly close as a family. Every Sunday we had dinner together no matter how busy we were. Connor would drive home from college. Sophie would come back from her studio. Emma would finish grading papers and join us. We would sit around that same old wooden table, now covered with years of scratches and memories, and we would talk. We shared our struggles, our victories, our lives. We were not just a family. We were a team. 21 years passed. Connor was 29, working as a lead engineer at an aerospace company. Sophie was 27, running her own clothing line that was gaining recognition. Emma was 25, teaching third grade and loving every minute of it. I was 51, still working but thinking about retirement. Life was good. We had built something beautiful from the ruins Laura left behind. It was an October afternoon when everything changed. I was home early preparing dinner. I was making my famous spaghetti, the one the kids loved. I had invited all three of them over for our weekly family dinner. The doorbell rang and I figured one of them had arrived early. I wiped my hands on a towel and walked to the front door. When I opened it, I froze. Standing on my porch was a woman I barely recognized. She had gray streaks running through her hair. Her face was gaunt with deep lines etched around her eyes and mouth. She wore a plain jacket that had seen better days and jeans that were frayed at the edges. She looked worn down by life, but I knew those eyes, Laura. For a moment, neither of us spoke. She looked at me with a mixture of hope and fear. Then she said, "Ike, do you remember me?" Her voice cracked. I felt a rush of emotions, anger, confusion, disbelief. I kept my voice steady. "I remember the person who abandoned this family." Her face crumpled, but I did not soften. I asked her what she was doing here. She said she needed to talk. Against my better judgment, I let her in. Connor, Sophie, and Emma arrived within minutes of each other. They walked into the living room and stopped dead in their tracks when they saw Laura sitting on the couch. Connor was the first to speak. "Who is this?" He looked at me confused. I said, "This is Laura, your mother." The room went silent. You could hear a pin drop. Sophie's hand flew to her mouth. Emma's eyes widened. Laura stood up, tears already streaming down her face. She tried to smile. "Hi, babies. I know it has been a long time." Babies. She called them babies. They were adults now. Adults she did not know. Connor's jaw clenched. Sophie crossed her arms. Emma just stared. Laura started talking. She said she was sorry. She said she had made a terrible mistake. Then she told us her story. She and David had moved to California, and at first, everything was perfect. He had money, a big house, and they lived a life of luxury. But a few years into their relationship, David's business collapsed. He had made poor investments and owed money to a lot of people. Everything fell apart. David started drinking. He became angry and violent. Laura had to work multiple jobs just to keep them afloat. She worked as a waitress, a house cleaner, anything she could find. David eventually left her 5 years ago for a younger woman, and Laura was left with nothing. No money, no home, no one. She had been living in a small apartment, barely scraping by. She said she thought about us every day. She said she wanted to come back sooner, but was too ashamed. Now she was here because she had nowhere else to go. She wanted to be part of the family again. She wanted to be a mother. She looked at Connor, Sophie, and Emma with desperate eyes. "I know I messed up. I know I hurt you, but I'm here now. I want to make things right." The room stayed silent for a long moment. Then Connor spoke. His voice was cold, controlled. "Do you think you can just come back after 21 years and everything will be okay?" Laura started to respond, but Connor cut her off. "Do you know what it was like growing up without a mother? Do you know how many times I looked around at school events, hoping to see you there? Dad was always there. But where were you?" His words hit like hammers. Laura tried to speak, but Sophie stepped forward. "Do you know what it felt like to dance on stage for the first time and scan the audience hoping to see a familiar face? Dad was there with flowers. But where were you? You were off living your dream life with your rich boyfriend." Sophie's voice shook with emotion. Emma, the youngest, the one who had been only 4 when Laura left, spoke last. Her voice was quiet, but firm. "You left us when we needed you most. Now you need us, so you come back. That is not love. That is selfish." Laura tried to defend herself. "You do not understand. I was young. I made a mistake. I was only 30. Connor interrupted her. "You were young. Dad was young too. Dad had to raise 3 kids alone. He did not run away. He stayed. He fought for us every single day. The weight of his words hung in the air. Laura collapsed back onto the couch sobbing. She looked at me pleading. "Ike, please, help me. Tell them." I stood up slowly. I'd been quiet until now, letting the kids speak. But it was time. I looked at Laura and felt nothing but clarity. "Laura, 21 years ago you made a choice. You chose an easy life over your family. You chose money over your children. Now you are back not because you love us, but because you need us. That is not love." I continued. I told her about the nights I stayed up with sick kids, the parent-teacher conferences I attended alone, the birthdays, the graduations, the moments that mattered. I was there for all of it. She was not. These kids did not need a mother who only shows up when her life falls apart. We learned how to live without you, and we are happy. We are whole. I walked to the door and opened it. "You need to leave." Laura stood up, her legs shaking. She begged, she pleaded. But Connor, Sophie, and Emma stood beside me, a united front. They did not waver. Laura looked at each of their faces, searching for any sign of forgiveness. There was none. She finally understood. She had lost this family forever. She walked to the door, tears streaming down her face, and stepped outside. I closed the door behind her, and this time it was final. The four of us stood in the living room in silence. Then Connor spoke. "You did the right thing, Dad." Sophie nodded. "We are proud of you." Emma walked over and hugged me tightly. "You are our hero." I felt a weight lift off my shoulders, a weight I did not even know I had been carrying. We sat down together, and for the first time we talked openly about Laura, about how her leaving had hurt us, about how we had healed, about how we had become stronger because of it. Connor said, "I used to be angry at her, but now I just feel sorry for her. She missed out on everything." Sophie agreed. "She missed watching us grow up. She missed being part of our lives. That was her loss, not ours." Emma added, "We did not need her to be happy. We had you, Dad. We had each other." We spent the rest of the evening together, laughing and sharing memories. We talked about the time I burned dinner, and we ate pizza on the floor. We talked about the disastrous hair braiding attempts. We talked about all the little moments that had built our family into what it was today. In the months that followed, I felt freer than I had in years. I no longer carried any resentment or anger toward Laura. I had let it go. I started dating again. I met a woman named Patricia who worked in my department. She was kind, understanding, and she respected my past. The kids loved her. They saw how happy she made me, and they encouraged me to pursue the relationship. Patricia did not try to replace anyone. She just fit into our lives naturally. Connor got engaged to his college sweetheart, a brilliant engineer named Lisa. Sophie's clothing line took off, and she was featured in several fashion magazines. Emma was named Teacher of the Year at her school. Life was full, rich, and beautiful. We still had our Sunday dinners, and now Patricia joined us. Sometimes Connor brought Lisa. Sometimes Sophie brought her partner. Our family was growing, evolving, but the foundation remained the same. Love, loyalty, and presence. I thought a lot about the journey we had been on. 21 years of struggle, growth, and healing. I realized that love is not just about words or promises. It is about showing up every single day, even when it is hard. It is about sacrifice and commitment. Laura had loved us in her own way, but she had not been strong enough to stay. And that was okay. We did not need her to validate our family. We had built something strong on our own. I learned that forgiveness does not mean letting someone back into your life. It means releasing the hold they have on your heart. I forgave Laura not for her sake, but for mine. I forgave her so I could move forward without bitterness. But forgiveness did not mean reconciliation. Some bridges once burned should stay that way. It is not cruel. It is self-preservation. I also learned that family is not defined by blood or legal documents. It is defined by who shows up, who stays, who fights for you when things get tough. Connor, Sophie, and Emma were my family, not because we shared DNA, but because we chose each other every single day. Patricia became family because she chose to love us and be part of our lives. That is what matters. I taught my kids about responsibility, loyalty, and unconditional love through my actions. I showed them that when life knocks you down, you get back up. You dust yourself off and you keep going. Not because it is easy, but because the people you love are worth it. They learned that strength is not about never falling. It is about always rising. Sometimes people ask me if I regret not taking Laura back, if I feel guilty for turning her away. The answer is no, not even for a second. My responsibility was to protect my children, to give them stability and love. Letting Laura back in would have undone everything we had built. It would have sent the message that abandonment is forgivable if you come back sorry enough. But actions have consequences. Laura made her choice 21 years ago, and we made ours that October afternoon. Life has a funny way of working out. Laura leaving us was devastating at the time, but it also gave us the opportunity to become something stronger. We learned resilience. We learned that we did not need anyone else to be complete. We were enough just as we were. And that is a powerful lesson. I look at my kids now, all grown and thriving, and I feel overwhelming pride. Not because of what they have accomplished, though, that is incredible, but because of who they have become. They are kind, strong, and fiercely loyal. They know their worth. They do not settle for people who do not value them. They learned that from watching me refuse to settle for less than we deserved. The best revenge is not bitterness. It is not holding on to anger or plotting to hurt the person who hurt you. The best revenge is building a life so full of love, purpose, and joy that the person who left realizes they walked away from something irreplaceable. We did not just survive Laura leaving. We thrived. We became better, stronger, and happier. And in the end, that is all that matters. So when I think about that night 21 years ago, standing in the doorway watching my kids sleep, feeling like my world was ending, I wish I could go back and tell myself it was going to be okay. More than okay. It was going to be beautiful. Because sometimes life breaks you, not to destroy you, but to rebuild you into something stronger. And that is exactly what happened to us. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to make a difficult choice about letting someone back into your life after they hurt you? How did you handle it? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. And do not forget to subscribe for more real-life stories that remind us all that we are stronger than we think. Thank you for watching, and remember, you are never alone in your struggles. Keep fighting, keep loving, and keep building the life you deserve. Take care, and I will see you in the next one.